Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Sana Maqbool with you at PTV WORLD. In today's show, our two segments are going to be focusing on first Pakistan and China's relationship, something that has been much talked about after the recent attack in Karachi and whether or not that puts a huge impact on the way the relationship is going forward. There have been many reassuring statements that have been coming in, especially from the Chinese side as well. And now we also know that a Chinese security expert has also commented and reassured the world that Pakistan is fully capable of providing security to Chinese citizens and to CPEC projects as well, and that this points towards the all-weather strategic partnership that Pakistan and China have continued to enjoy over decades. What has happened in the aftermath of the Karachi incident is that the top Pakistani leadership have visited the Chinese embassy and also condemned the incident. And of course, the CPEC projects that have been widely discussed in the past as well have been provided with the security that they require. And this, of course, points to the fact that the evolving situation between Pakistan and China is not going to be affected by spoilers and their efforts, and this has been the case for a while now. But we're going to be discussing moving forward what are the challenges that lie ahead for Pakistan and China moving forward, and then of course how we are going to see the situation evolve, particularly with reference to CPEC projects, because that has been a matter of huge concern for Pakistan as well as a game changer for not only our country but the entire region as well. The other relationship that we're going to be focusing on is between US and China, a relationship that seemed to have been in the background of the US administration since we've seen the Ukrainian crisis emerge, and a lot of attention, of course, was diverted towards the Russian invasion. But the recent events and the recent focus of the Biden administration, their plans to have meetings within the region, points to the fact that their focus on China and looking at China as a major competitor in the international arena has not gone anywhere. And this is something that the Biden administration wants to clarify to perhaps the Chinese officials as well, that the US's focus remains on China. Whether or not this is something that is part of the plan, part of the strategic steps that have been taken, and how the ASEAN summit and other meetings with regards to the Quad is also going to affect the relationship between US and China in the future, and how the Biden administration is going to deal with it. This will be our focus of the second segment today. At the end, we'll also be taking a look at a very important news story, but that's for later. We're going to be joined, of course, by our experts online as well. But as usual, I've been joined in the studios by Farrukh Pitafi and Raja Faisal. And for our first segment, we've been joined by Mr. Javed Hussain, who's a former ambassador, and we've also been joined by Abdurrahman Tara, who's a security analyst. Thank you very much for joining us and being with us on the debate. When we look at the situation between China and Pakistan and the evolving relationship, we understand that both of the countries have stood by each other in difficult times, and China has always supported Pakistan and extending help to its country, to Pakistan as well, and to its people as well. And then again, we see that since CPEC has been around, there have been a lot of concerns with regards to the security challenges. And although many still remain, the fact that we need to be able to say with confidence that China at least is not concerned about Pakistan's capability of providing security to its citizens and to its projects is something which is of paramount importance. But do you think, sir, that this statement itself also puts into confidence the way that the entire world is looking at the relationship, perhaps the way spoilers want to go ahead with the kind of measures that they take? And then what exactly can be done about this fact in terms of the perspective that exists of this relationship in the world? Mr. Javed?
Sorry, I couldn't catch your question. Can you please repeat it?
Absolutely. I was talking about the statements that have been coming in from the Chinese side and the impact that they have on Pakistan-China's relationship. They're very reassuring. And over the years, we've also seen that any such attempts to disturb this relationship have failed, and that China-Pakistan continue to stand by each other. But do you think that incidents that we've seen in the past or the security challenges that have been highlighted are something that are still a matter of concern for the international arena when they look at Pakistan and China's relationship? Or do you think that how history has proven itself is enough for this relationship to stand in the eyes of the world as well?
Well, I think China has been a very steadfast friend of Pakistan for a long time, since 1960s. And this friendship between the two countries has increased in strength with the passage of time. There have been difficult moments in this friendship. For instance, the recent event of terrorism in Karachi University
Right.
was one of those incidents which are regrettable, which must be condemned. And but we can rest assured that the Chinese leadership, which has always shown maturity and understanding of Pakistan's problems, will again continue to demonstrate that maturity and wisdom that has been their hallmark. And therefore, I am quite sure that that incident, while highly condemnable and deplorable, will not have any lasting effect on Pakistan-China friendship. That does not mean that we should be complacent. We should, at the level of the government and at the level of the society and at national and lower levels, we should take all possible measures to ensure that such incidents do not take place in the future. And this is something that requires
Right, but Ambassador Saab,
a
what
national
sort of actions do these measures actually
nationally
contain? You're talking
agreed.
about all sorts of measures that can be taken. Do you think we're taking all the measures that need to be taken, especially with regards to foreign elements?
Well, I think we need to energize ourselves. We need, it is quite obvious that CPEC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, has not been liked, for instance, or has been criticized strongly by India and also some other world powers. It is not beyond the realm of a possibility that some external powers may be involved in inciting trouble in Pakistan to undermine CPEC, which constitutes, in my view, Pakistan's economic lifeline, and we need to take full advantage of that in building up our economy in various sectors. Therefore, we have to be very, very sensitive on the one hand to China's views, on the other hand, we need to take all possible measures so that external forces do not play a dirty role in Pakistan politically or otherwise to undermine this important project between Pakistan and China, which is an important element of for building up Pakistan-China friendship and cooperation in various sectors.
Ambassador Javed Saab, talking about the external factors related to our security, of course, we know that in past we have precedents that India has been infiltrating terror through Afghanistan and through Iran as well. We know that Kulbhushan Jadhav, he entered into Pakistan from Iran. And right now, of course, we know that there are economic deals going on between Iran plus China. Both of the countries, they are cooperating each other in terms of economy. Could we say that in coming future, Pakistan and China, both of them, looking at the facts on ground of Pakistan, that Pakistan is doing utmost efforts to contain this wave of terror? Of course, we know that TTP and BLA, they are getting facilitated by the neighbors of Pakistan, the Western neighbors I'm talking about. So, could we say that both of the countries, they need to, they need to have a strategy, diplomatic strategy to talk to the neighbors, the Western neighbors, so that it can be contained in future, sir?
It is obvious that Pakistan and can play a very, very important strategic role in um, in um, in the development and in economic and political integration of this region, in which China, Pakistan, Iran, all of them can play an important role. Uh, these are the areas or countries which are contiguous. Their interests are there is identity of interest, commonality of interest between them, and at the economic level, at the political level, at the strategic level. So it makes eminent sense for all of them to build up and promote cooperation between them in especially in economic, commercial, technical, and scientific fields to their
Right.
mutual advantage. And
Absolutely.
I have no doubt that our government and also the Chinese authorities, as well as Iran, would be keen to do that. I remember that.
Absolutely, and I understand that, and that commitment, of course, is there both from the Pakistani side and the Chinese side as well. But Farrukh, when we look at the relationship over time, I understand that it has gone through various tests of time, and even in the most difficult times, we've seen China has stood by us. But the security challenges pose a serious challenge to Pakistan and China. And then when we look at the way that we're going to be moving forward, particularly with CPEC and other projects, or with our relationship with China in the future, then of course we'll have to perhaps look into this matter with a sense of urgency, because we have the reassurance coming in from the Chinese side, but of course the security of citizens of China is very important to China as well, and it's in their interest. So they really need security guarantees from Pakistan, don't they?
Right, Sana. Actually, I wanted to ask a question. I wanted to put a question to Ambassador Saab, but
You can do that later.
what I'm going to do right now is to restructure my question into a comment, because it was a loaded question, right?
All right.
When you look at various countries in the region, wherever there was Chinese interest involved, there seems to be a hybrid war going on. And I mentioned two countries at least. There can be three. One is Nepal, where Prime Minister Oli was put through a lot of purity test. Then Sri Lanka, where Rajapakse had actually aligned with China, and there was this port deal, and there were other deals as well. Then Afghanistan itself, the way it actually crumbled and all fell to dust. There too, China had interest, and it seems that India is very clear that it is waging a hybrid war, and it is attacking Chinese interests. So you can say that it is going to happen in Pakistan as well. And now the question is, how do you actually fight back? I think it is very important. Urgency is there.
Right.
And there are two aspects which are very important, where both these countries can work together. One is, of course, the kinetic aspect, where India is actually, as was pointed out by our good friend here, Faisal also, India keeps on, sending its goons or supporting goons on ground who actually attack people and who die or kill others, right? And then there is propaganda warfare. India, in the two decades of war and terror, somehow actually managed to capture the Western imagination. And now they are actually calling shots. They keep on manipulating West, right? At that time, the Indian propaganda about CPEC actually finds a lot of traction in the West. So the two countries which are heavily invested in CPEC will have to come up with a joint mechanism to fight this propaganda as well, right? That can happen. And now, first of all, when you talk about solidarity and when ensuring that no kinetic activity takes place, the first thing is either you catch the culprits that are sponsoring Pakistan. Even has a dossier that Pakistan presented, and I keep on going back to it, right? Because it tallied with the FinCEN report, where Indian banks were being used to actually send money to such elements. The second thing is, even if you cannot catch it and there's no forum platform to present it, then of course comes the second possibility of doing a tit-for-tat support to the elements in their country, right? This is what happens. So this is one aspect that both the countries will have to look at. And then the propaganda bit. They both have very sound platforms of their own to combat propaganda. But I think China and Pakistan need to have a broader, wider reaching a channel that reaches all over the world to combat propaganda.
That's what I was going to ask. Do they even have the audience? If they have the capacity, perhaps, will they have the audience as India does?
Why not? Can you explain why not?
Perhaps if they try hard enough, they can gain the same audience.
No, hang on. You have to understand the nature of world democracies. There, people have this habit of talking a lot and listening a lot. So you will have as many talking heads as you want. If RT can do it, if umpteen other channels can do it, Al Jazeera can do it, China and Pakistan together will be actually giving something out which is not that toxic. So why not actually do that?
Right, absolutely. Yes,
Yeah,
Faisal.
and I just wanted to add in that Sana, you remember we have been talking about this in past as well. That three countries, we have been talking about the three countries, Russia, China, and Pakistan. They need to work on it. They need to have a channel, an English channel that can actually bring forth the truth. Remember, it is not the propaganda we need to do it. We just need to burst the propaganda with the truth on ground, and this is what we need to do. And I think
Right.
it would be
I'm
easy
sorry.
to-
But-
I'm cutting
yes.
in and I'm butting in. The problem is that our, I mean, there are people who want actually somehow to keep Russia center of the frame, right? The problem is I didn't do what Russia did in Ukraine, but factually Russia has lost the West support all over the West, right? I cannot talk about Russia at this moment, but these two countries, they need not lose their partners in the West. So what do? You team up and you actually stay away from Russia. You actually tailor a message which is convincing, not actually, actually making fun of anybody's intelligence, but realistic, right? And you can actually open up the West to the possibilities that this region offers.
Yeah, well,
Right,
I just included
Russia and Pakistan might
No,
be
no, no.
doing a lot for each other one day, but at this moment I have zero history of their close cooperation
I just
for the long
included
term.
Russia
China
because of
and
one reason.
Pakistan
BRI
are
and
blood.
CPEC.
Sorry?
BRI and CPEC, of course, BRI goes through Russia, so
BRI
that is
and
why.
no, hang on. BRI is a separate entity, and then Eurasia bloc is a separate entity. Why do you have to actually bring them together? They are individuals, right? At this moment, the closest ally we have got is China.
Yeah.
And nobody in this country will doubt it, right? Nobody in China will doubt it. So why not work together? These two countries can work together.
All right,
They have
but
been.
when we also look at the capacity perhaps for both the countries to work together, especially with regards to the propaganda campaign, do you actually think that we can perhaps create some sort of mechanism to deal with that? And then when we talk about the different ways that people are perceiving information, then wouldn't this be a difficult way to be able to convince people?
Yeah.
Sana, there are many, many outlets on YouTube, many.
No, I understand that, but the kind of campaign perhaps that we have seen or we have dealt with, especially in India, are we going to be able to fight on that level?
We can. That is what I was about to say, that on lower level, fake news busters are already existing and they have been doing it since long. And to me, I think we just need to raise our level and we need to do it at an international level. And that is the only way we can do it. We should not be forgetting that time and again, we didn't do it. The Western, organizations who work on fake news busting, they have been busting India's fake news and they have been highlighting it throughout the world. But of course, as Farrukh earlier mentioned, that of course they have lobbying and all. India has it and they use it, and they have successfully, made the Westerners believe that they are right and rest are wrong.
Right. Very quickly, just to
Yes, sir.
actually, just to qualify what I was saying earlier, if you have watched any of the CGTN network channels or CCTV for that matter, I mean, their English channels, when I start looking at it, China is so huge and China is so beautiful that I'm lost, right? China has humongous stories to tell the world, and so does Pakistan. Pakistan, because we are a post-colonial country, we understand the Western thought process better. We are equally footed, evenly footed as China, as India. When you talk about access, the only problem is India keeps on creating barriers. We can actually overcome that. But China has a lot of wealth as well. So that means, what does that mean? Technology. That means better access to better people. I mean, what did RT do in the West? RT actually hired people from there and they were telling their stories. Similarly, when you talk about Al Jazeera, that also did exactly the same thing. You'll have to do exactly the same. First create a platform, then create quality and content, and you can actually get whatever you want.
All right, let us also welcome in the show Mr. Abdul Rahman Tara, who's a security analyst. Thank you for joining us, sir, and being part of the show. You've joined us with the former ambassador, Mr. Javed Hussain, and we're talking, of course, about our relationship with China and moving forward, the kind of challenges that we've been facing and how we're going to be dealing with that. One such challenge that we're discussing at the moment is the way that this is going to be perceived and how we need to be able to communicate to the people of the world. But what's also perhaps important is how people in both these countries also perceive information, especially perhaps the Chinese citizens, and the way that they understand that security is guaranteed in Pakistan. And there have been, of course, events in the recent past and then previously as well, which may have put into question the way that the Chinese nationals look at this relationship. Do you think that this has been seriously damaging? And if so, how do you think that both countries can contribute towards fixing that?
Time an act of terrorism takes place in Pakistan, in which Chinese citizens get come to harm, has a negative impact on Pakistan-China relations to some extent, and we should understand that underlines the severity of this issue and the need and urgency on the part of our authorities and the country and the nation as a whole to take all possible measures so that such measures, such incidents are not repeated in future. That is number one. Number two, we need to have more frequent interaction at the political, at the social level, at the academic and scholarly level, at people's level between Pakistan and China to understand each other's point of view, to understand the nature of the problems that both the countries are facing, and also to understand the conspiracies which are being hashed by other powers, especially India, to undermine Pakistan-China relationship and to undermine CPEC. And I think that is very important that this understanding at the highest level and also at the lower level is promoted so that both countries are alert to the dangers that befall them, that lie ahead for both of them in building up their cooperation and their relations in various fields.
Exactly. Brigadier Abdul Rahman, I wanted to ask a question from you, knowing the fact that you have written a book called Chinami on your Chinese experiences. I just wanted to know all of these attacks which are in past were conducted on Chinese citizens, what kind of impact it would be having on the Chinese society, sir?
Am I audible?
Yes, you are, sir.
But I can't see the video or any link.
We can see you and hear you, sir.
So we can see you. I'm Raja Faisal, sir.
Okay. Well, whenever there's an act of terror or when the Chinese nationals in Pakistan, they are targeted, definitely it impacts the Chinese people in general and their government in particular. However, if you understand the Chinese nation and their psyche, they are determined that they will go ahead with their long-term plans. And I'm sure they must have had calculated the challenges which they are going to confront while they are realizing their dream of bypassing the Malacca Strait and Malacca dilemma. So Pakistan and the route from through Pakistan is one of the major alternatives which can give them that sense of security. So Chinese definitely they do worry about being targeted in Pakistan by different players, international players, those who consider China as a threat and those who consider that China is going to challenge their hegemony at the international level. However, the Chinese nation and the Chinese government, they think alike and they are aware of the challenges they are going to face while, offsetting the existing power balance.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Mr. Abdurrahman Tara and Mr. Javed Hussain, for joining us. Unfortunately, we're out of time for the first segment, so we're going to have to end here. But what we're going to be talking about is also with reference to China, but their relationship with United States, something that is also, of course, a point of concern for the United States and the entire world as well, how this is going to evolve. And recently, we've seen that there has been a lot of focus on Russia and the Ukrainian invasion, but it seems that the Biden administration wants to make it clear that the focus still remains on, Faisal, what you refer to as the Indo-Pacific. Do you think that this is something that needed to be focused on once again or be emphasized upon once again by the US administration? Was it not something that perhaps has been clear since long before that as well?
It was clear, and I think it was just a reminder for China that they are still here. And the upcoming days, of course, Quad meeting is coming up, and in that Quad meeting, though Quad is considered as a non-military alliance, and they have been conducting naval exercises, joint naval exercises as well. But to me, I think it was another reminder for China that we in the region, of course, important countries like Japan, Australia, and India, along with them, and of course, it is being led by the Americans themselves. It is a checkmate for China that we are in the region and we are looking at you and we will keep you busy. We should not be forgetting one fact that when President Joe Biden took the Oval Office, he categorically stated his foreign policy, which will be centric China. And of course, in between, we saw that Ukraine crisis erupted, and the whole focus of American foreign policy, it shifted towards the. I think this is a sort of time that America wanted to remind the world that this is where their actual focus is. So it is all about that, I guess.
All right, Farrukh, when we look at Joe Biden's scheduled meetings with leaders of ASEAN, and then of course engagements with Quad countries as well, what exactly is the real objective here? I mean, I understand the kind of message they want to give, perhaps, but really, in tangible terms, what will such steps achieve in terms of their relationship with China?
Right. This word, relationship with China, is quite an intriguing one. I tell you why. Because when you talk about any kind of marital relationship or, romantic relationship, there is being together, then there is broken up. Third one is animosity. And the fourth one is it's complicated, right? At this moment, when we talk about this relationship, they are still together, but it is complicated, right? And that is important. Why? Because earlier, I think your first question was instinctively on the money, and that was Ukraine. Ukraine situation was such that America tried to goad China into actually taking a stance against Russia. China, of course, has a very humongous interest all over the world, including Russia. It does not want to alienate anybody, but it keeps on insisting that you have to believe in rule-based world order, right? At that moment, in that situation, it is important for the US to take care of its allies in the region. Why? Because they might not go to China, but they might end up with a third country, that is Russia. Right, Russia is quite influential. You remember, North Korea is already very close to Russia. There are umpteen other countries which have good relationship with Russia. So at that moment, it was important to actually bring back your coalitions. Then there is one man who is very, influential on this in this matter. That is Kurt Campbell, the America's NSC's point man on Indo-Pacific. Again, I have an issue with the term Indo-Pacific because these are two oceans which are separated by humongous, land mass. So they are not an entity. We keep on convincing ourselves that they are not. Every country that actually belongs in that region has a history of animosity against each other as well. For example, Japan and Korea might have issues with China, but they also have very big issues with each other. And then they have a history against Russia as well. So in that situation, I don't think that this is going to come together, this Asia, Indo-Pacific concept. But still, Kurt Campbell and other people, Kurt Campbell, by the way, wrote a book called The Pivot, right, in 2016. And that is a very good book to tell you where it might be going. But the current situation, going back to this word that I used, it's complicated.
Right.
Actually, one man defines how the US is now behaving, right? And that is Donald Trump. Donald Trump, when he came, he made the foreign policy total transactional, right? One day he's threatening North Korea, the next day he's singing swan songs or love songs, right? That means that when you're going to play ball with America, America is going to come together, come close to you. Otherwise, it will keep on pinching you and pushing you. As far as Quad is concerned, I don't think it is anything but a non-starter. Why? Because the other two countries that are there, Japan and Australia, have very close defense pacts with the US already. When it comes to India, India itself is so complicated when it comes to its foreign policy. Whenever you are asking it for something, it starts throwing a tantrum.
Right.
But when you want, when you look at it, it tries to blackmail you as well. So I don't think Quad is going anywhere.
Okay.
But regarding South Asia, Asia Pacific, I think the US has a huge number of allies, and they will be there. They will be working with the US no matter what, but they will not be working with each other.
Right. And Faisal, does this mean that when we look at the future and the evolving dynamics between the two countries, we don't really see a possibility of the two countries becoming closer unless China steps forward?
Well, China has been, stepping forward to any country in the world, obviously for the economic reasons. And if we look at the realities, of course, there's hundreds of billions of dollars worth of, trade that is still taking place between both of the countries. And
But it could be more.
yeah, it could be more. There is an opportunity for both of the countries to enhance that, but of course,
That's not incentive enough.
yeah, that's not. And earlier there was a point where Farrukh stated that, of course, America needed China to say something about Ukraine, and China stayed quiet. I think, to me, China has another factor, which is Taiwan factor, in which China itself needs somebody else's help. And of course, that somebody else is Russia. And the Beijing meetup.
Hang on. You are saying that China wants to colonize Taiwan?
Well, China calls
Invade Taiwan?
China.
No, I don't think so.
China calls Taiwan as its own territory.
Yeah, but it doesn't annex it, right?
Yeah.
There is a policy, Taiwan policy. So they are not just going to, it used to be called
Russian
Formosa. They are not going to behave like Russia. I think that is a part of the propaganda we keep on hearing in the Western
Exactly.
media.
But there is a diplomatic pressure on China, owing to the fact that the US and the Western powers, they have staunch reservations over China related to Taiwan, and they want that diplomatic factor to go positive for themselves. But when it comes to having trade relations or enhancing the trade relations, I don't think, because both of the countries, they are facing each other. If we take the example of India itself is a front line that is created by the Americans against China once again. And to me, whatever is going on against CPEC, somewhere down the line, of course, somebody sitting in the Washington, they have concerns over CPEC, they have concerns over BRI, because all of these projects, they will eventually turn China into a superpower, economic superpower. And there was a group of German economic analysts. They have been analyzing this, and they have been predicting that in coming very near future, China will be ultimately the superpower of the world. So these are the concerns.
All right.
For
Very
the
quickly, I
Americans.
wanted to butt in again, and I wanted to talk about this whole idea of India being created as the frontline state. You know, here's a problem with that. It deprives a country as rich and influential as India all agency of its own. I think India is too complicated. It has too many dynamics within it, and I don't think that you can see how it behaved regarding Russia. So you don't think that India will always be there the way you actually keep on thinking. And secondly, let me take you back to actually interwar period between the two world wars. Nazi Germany was supposed to be the front line against our dead Soviet Union, right? And in the end, it blew in everybody's face. So these things have this weird way of working their own path. And I don't think that at this moment things are that simple. These are arguments that we simplify to actually explain to people, but this is not how things are going to be.
Right, Faisal, I'll give you a chance to respond.
Comment.
Let me just quickly also welcome our guest who's been waiting online for a while. Dr. Nadia Helmi, who's an Asian affairs expert, has joined us in the debate. Thank you very much, Dr. Nadia, for being part of the show. Faisal, you may quickly respond. I'll go to Dr. Nadia then.
Quickly, we need to always focus on one thing, that whatever the richness we're talking about of India of today, of course, it comes through a proper plan, a strategy which was derived, and we know that there were very important visits. Especially one of the visits was President Obama, when he visited India. They have been provided with an opportunity to have their lobby in Washington.
All right.
Okay, I'm
Going to
provided. I know. I'm not going to
economic
actually.
leverage.
No,
They have been provided, IT positions, top IT positions in there. This all comes through a strategy. Otherwise, India is the same India that hasn't got 70%. 70% of India hasn't got the toilets.
I just want to hang on. I just want to actually just make a point that I reserve the right to actually rebut whatever is being said, but then go to the other guest.
Sure, I'll come back to you, Farrukh. Dr. Nadia, thank you very much for joining us in the debate. We, of course, are looking at the relationship between the US and China, and there's a lot of complications, as we've been discussing before as well. But with a special reference to when we talk about the evolving dynamics between US and Russia, and then US and China as well, there has always been talk about perhaps who is the bigger challenge for the US, or who the US is really focusing its attention on. Do you think that perhaps the focus of the US administration on China has always been there and is larger than Russia's? And is there a possibility of the two countries becoming a combined threat for the US? Dr. Nadia, I'm not able to hear you properly. Can you say that again, please?
Okay. Okay, do you hear me? It's okay?
I do.
Okay.
I do now, yes.
Okay. Actually, the moves of the United States against China is trying to contain China everywhere, especially in the Indo-Pacific region. And there are many secret attempts to open an office for the NATO military office in the Indo-Pacific near to the Japanese side to contain China. On the other side, there are as well some secret moves from the United States to expand the membership of the NATO members related to contain both China and Russia. And I can remember very well that Mark Esper, the American Minister of Defense, the Department of Defense, has visited Australia in the last period for Trump to persuade Australia to join the NATO membership in the upcoming years. So China is be aware of the American moves towards it, especially in the Indo-Pacific. And on the other hand, so China is trying to respond on the United States after its agreement with Solomon Islands in the last days. After that, there are many actions between the United States and the American side, especially China is trying to find many other ways to connect between China, Asia, and the Middle East away from Malta.
All right. So Dr. Nadia, looking at the future of the relationship, How do you see the dynamics evolve? Can we actually ever see a possibility of the two countries putting perhaps trade before all of the other issues that they have, and actually having a working relationship which is good for both of them and the world?
Actually, in the future, I don't think China and the United States, their relationship will be much better in the future. Especially, there are many challenges that are facing each other, especially after the COVID-19 pandemic, and there are many tensions between each other, especially in the trade issues and the pandemic effects that deteriorate the trust between the two sides. So they are trying to contain each other in the Indo-Pacific and everywhere in the world. And as I heard a few days ago, there are some American and Israeli moves to make some kind of deal with the Islamists and the Muslim Brotherhood in the Middle East and in the region to contain both China and Russia by the assistance of Muslim Brotherhood and Islamists to contain China and Russia in the Middle East and offshore in the whole world. So
all right, Dr. Nadia. All right, Dr. Nadia, I understand that. Yes, Farrukh, you wanted to add something.
Right. Well, earlier, when my brother here was actually talking about how India was honed as the next challenger of China, I just wanted to request everybody who is listening to start reading India's history, and then also concurrent to that, China's history as well, economic history, because then you will have some idea how complicated this thing is. One, it deprives India's geniuses like Manmohan Singh of their contribution to India's economic progress. India was a closed economic system, and then he came and opened it. By doing that, he created so much interest that the economy went up, and that has been going up for quite some time. Nobody has the time or energy to actually create an economy out of nothing, an economy which has people, 1.3 billion people depending on it. If any country that owes a lot to its economic growth, it is China, right? WHO was actually included, China was included in WHO by whom? By America. Who is the largest economic partner, trading partner of America? It is China. Who owns America's largest chunk of debt? It is China, right? All these matters are important to remember how complicated these things are.
Right.
I don't say that there hasn't been any hanky-panky. My problem is that we usually have a problem, and we always have problem with in America, Democrats, not their Republicans. For example, brother here just mentioned Obama's visit, and before whatever that was happening, he forgot. Clinton was one blip, but after that, 8 years when you were fighting war on terror, why was it that Bush was actually so supportive of India, right? They started supporting the idea of inclusion of India in the UNSC. With that kind of support, you can see that, the Republicans have done more damage. But India has its own domestic market which has grown, and it has very capable people. When you talk about the tech, heads of organizations, let me also mention they have one great thing about them, and you can talk to anybody in their country, in America, and they will tell you that they are very honest with their secrets. They don't try to bring that technology back to India. That never happened. With European people, with Chinese, others, there were accusations of technology theft. It didn't happen in India. That's why these people, when they go abroad, they leave their passports behind, they leave their nationality behind. Most of them don't want to talk to Modi, right? This is the state of affairs. This thing is complicated. If we want to actually say that things are actually hunky-dory and then India is going to become the next challenger to China, I don't think that is that easy to say.
I agree with the last point, because very recently, Praveen Swahani happens to be...
Yeah, read books, not tweets.
Yeah, he said it that this economic boost is a sort of economic bubble that would bust, and
India.
It is very
no, it is complicated. I agree.
Yeah,
because these guys didn't know how to manage the economy. These guys destroyed it.
And he said that in case of a two-front war, if India faces, of course, India's economic bubble would burst because it is very fragile.
Right. Let us also just take a last comment from Dr. Nadia and talk to her with reference to the Quad and whether or not that is going to be something that perhaps can be something that the US uses to counter China or to contain China.
Actually, United States is trying to contain China everywhere, especially in the economic side, and they are trying to impose some kind of conditions, strict conditions, especially after Chinese factories are invading the whole world everywhere, especially after there are as well after the Russia-Ukrainian war. So the countries, especially in the Indo-Pacific, they are attempting to carefully not to face each other, and there are some American fears of the Chinese of the Chinese moves towards Taiwan and the South China Sea, because China in the last days as well is trying to launch many kind of advanced missiles to contain the United States, because the United States is becoming so close to the Chinese side. So I think that the United States is trying to make some kind of attempts to rally and to give support to its Indo-Pacific strategy, especially with especially after ECOWAS agreement.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nadia Helmi, for joining us. We're out of time for this segment, but thank you for being a part of the debate. And just before we leave, a little look at the story that we were mentioning earlier. We know that there is, of course, the prestigious Pulitzer Prize, which are given to different journalists and then, of course, different agencies who are able to bring forth the images or news items which are worthy of sharing. And just now we know that the New York Times has won 3 of them and has also been named as a finalist 5 more times. And the Washington Post also took the Public Service Award, and Reuters claimed the prize for feature photography. A lot of these articles and news items showed some striking photographs that were taken over the course of last year, and many important stories have been covered. So it's wonderful to see that the images and the stories that should have a strong impact on the world and the way that they're being perceived is being recognized and honored. Yes.
Yeah, Sana, just wanted to mention our new head of PTV World, Owen Sahi, is one of them who actually won. He was part of the team that won Pulitzer.
Pulitzer is one of the most prestigious journalism awards. And yesterday I was tweeting that one day I'm going to win one as well.
Why not?
But I don't know how. I don't know, because I'm sitting here and I don't have any capacity to do that. But perhaps I will write a book and then I will win it.
Great.
But on Sahi, New York Times is an amazing publication. The way it exposed various, the dark underbelly of various countries is amazing. I think the entire team should be congratulated, including our very own.
Absolutely. That's all we have from the debate at the moment. See you tomorrow.